Being a creative being means to me coming together with inspirational people and hearing their thoughts, and especially on how they see the world, and especially as Black people, sharing our views, our experiences to understand the diversity exists in the Black spectrum of experience. I invited Stacy, Kelly, Sheila, Courtney to share their thoughts with me. How can we grow together as a community within the Black female experience?
So, growing up, I lived in the Netherlands all my life, and I was always the only Black girl in the class, in the grade, from the age of like 8 until 18. And I remember very clearly at one point, I was just tired of the only image of beauty that I was seeing or that was presented to me through the media was white beauty. And I was like, how is it that you never or rarely ever see a Black woman being portrayed as beautiful, as graceful, as elegant, or as something beyond a stereotype? So I created a blog on Tumblr, and
me too.
Oh, you did? Yeah, I do. And for, like I So I created a blog on Tumblr, and initially it was just a fashion blog because I was obsessed with high fashion as a youngster. Yeah. I was obsessed with high fashion, but then I was like, you know what? I really want to foreground Black women in high fashion, and then later on I was just like, you know what? I just really want to foreground Black people doing amazing things because it's the media that I don't get to see, and it's the media that really means something to me. Lo and behold, one of my followers is on the table here today, and she started following my blog before she met me.
What?
Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that?
Wow.
So it just goes to show that it's crazy. It's actually crazy. Yeah, but it just goes to show that the internet brings so many people together. You can create your own space where your thoughts are valid, where what you think is beautiful is valid, where the way you express yourself is okay, and there are like-minded people out there, even if they're not in your immediate surroundings. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. I completely get you. I think mine might be a little bit similar to yours, just in terms of, I mean, you grew up in the Netherlands, I grew up in Switzerland, and in Switzerland, not once did I ever think about my identity or ever even, I never even felt, it's weird, I never even felt like a minority. It was never pointed out to me. And the moment I came to the UK, it was, all these little things were being said, etc. And I think, as well as the internet being such a big help, but I think for me personally, going to university and almost being forced to be within that space, because I've never had to be within that space before. I've always been the only Black person in a room, and I was like, I don't know how am I going to find other Black women? Like, it's so difficult. So I almost sort of gave up, and then coming to university and then you're now in the surroundings where you actually have, we're still a minority, but you have kind of a few who look like you around you. So I think at the same time, like, that experience helped a lot.
Yeah, I mean, university, I think, is similarly to you, it was really formative for me in creating and nurturing a Black community, especially a community of like Black non-binary people and women. But also, like, I come from Uganda, and I go back there quite often, and so at the same time that I've been figuring out my identity as a Black person, I've also had to figure out what that means in the context of a majoritarily Black nation, and how race functions there. And I think for me, like, reading literature by African women writers and African non-binary writers and taking in their art has been really helpful for me because it's allowed me to see my Blackness in multiple contexts. So like the first book, although now it's problematic, but the first book that really helped me see myself was Americana by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. Yeah,
I read in high school as well. That really, really helped me.
Right, like when the blog posts about racism and talking about hair and just talking about being a Black woman in the West, and all all the weird things that you find about being in the West, but also being African. It was really helpful to me to actually see myself in a context that was global, but also very personal, very local to me.
Yeah.
And from there, I've been able to find other writers and other artists, and I think like the biggest thing about forming community as well is to reach out to them and just telling people that, oh my gosh, I love your work. I feel seen by it. I really appreciate it. Thank you for creating what you're creating. And I found that when I've done that, they've just been like, "Whoa, thank you so much. That's so nice to hear," or it's actually led to more opportunities and collaboration. And in that way, I've met so many more Black women and Black non-binary artists who are doing incredible things. So.
Nice. I think for me it gets difficult because I was raised by my white family. So acknowledging kind of like that mentality that they, I didn't acknowledge myself as a Black woman. Like I think they was very rejective of that, and that was reflective on me. Like I don't know. And then of course all the external implements around me that's obviously very toxic on like Black identity in terms of there weren't really any further education in my family, and their engagement with Black culture was very limited, and because I didn't have that from my Black side either, I guess, I don't know, my step into kind of like self-identification as a Black woman, kind of like the external factors were always there, but kind of I was blind to them. I didn't ever ask my questions around like how the world saw me, and maybe like, I don't know, the last 2 years I was all over the place. I was like, who am I? I don't know. And I think acknowledging that like I had a white mentality, I believed that I was white, I think, and then like I was brought into like the art world, which is primarily white, and I think just that notion of not, I don't want to say standing out, but like, I guess, yeah, I feel like I feel Black while I'm in those white spaces, and that notion of just speaking, I feel scared to say some things within those spaces just because their engagement with Black culture, with Black people, I know it's not there, and a lot of people have been honest with me and they've opened up to me and they've said like, I feel uncomfortable around you, I don't know, I've never been taught how to act around Black people, and I know
aliens,
but yeah, just trying to, I think it gets difficult for me because like I don't want that kind of, it's not my job to kind of like but also trying to make it in the art world. I don't know, juggling and kind of like looking after yourself within those environments, I find really difficult. And then also being wary of what I say in those spaces, and I always try and like ensure, like after I say things that I put forward, I try and make sure that it's known that it's my opinion and I don't speak on behalf of like groups of people. Like I don't represent all Black women or biracial, depending on the gaze obviously, like it depends who. There's a lot of people, like a lot of white people within these spaces, and like I don't know how much engagement they've had and like how they see me within that, because they might see me as biracial, they might see me as Black, but I truly don't believe that any of them see me as white. I don't know.
It's like that sense of otherness and like belonging and not belonging.
Yeah, and it's, I don't know, just trying to grasp a comfort in that space, but then because the art world hasn't been built, acknowledging why these spaces have been built and like for what purpose. There weren't space for us, there still really isn't. And there have been people and there are people that are making those massive differences. Very inspirational people that are making space for us, but like it's just not happening quick enough. And I think, I don't know, like in terms of like, if I put my problems forward to like the head of art or like the art departments, because there aren't enough voices, Black voices within these environments, they just don't, I don't know, the change isn't happening. They're kind of like, okay, we changed this for 1 or 2 students, but like I believe our experience matters too. Oh God, yeah, I don't know.
I get what you're saying.
I don't know.
Especially when you're trying to excel. I mean, you're doing fine art and being in this white art spaces and trying to excel in your craft and doing something you're passionate, but then that sense of, you feel like you belong because of like this is what you like to do, but then that space that you're in doesn't make you feel like you belong. So it's always a battle, constant battle in your mind of, do I fit in, do I not fit in? But I'm doing the same thing as everybody else, going towards the same goal, but at the same time, I like you said, not everyone is supposed to stand out, but it's almost like you do stand out. And these white spaces keep pushing it down. Like I'm about to expose somebody, but I literally just had an email where I had to write like a little statement of an exhibition that we're doing, and it's about institutional racism and representation, and just very clear of what the topics are about. And I just got an email back that was like, oh well, this is a little bit, we're not sure we can really use those words, so we've had to turn it down. So like Stacey and so is doing an exhibition about diversity and culture.
No.
And I was like, and I looked at it and I didn't even reply, and I was like, because this is not that's
whitewashing your message.
Yeah, you've diluted everything, but you've asked me to come and do this because there's a problem. So it's like you want me to move forward, but you've laid out the path for me. So where am I supposed to go? Because my opinion clearly doesn't matter in the subject. So
it gets
it's
really
tricky.
difficult, I think, because I think and of course we can have these conversations like not outside this, but it's like trying to acknowledge like where like the rules and regulations that lie within these white institutions, and like where their values are. I think it's important to learn those first, to then start to unpick them and see how to like put.
Can I just ask
I don't know. Go ahead.
Are you also talking about like the unwritten norms as well, or are you just talking?
Yeah,
about
I guess in terms of like the way I guess I'm talking about the art world because that's what I'm most familiar with right now. But oh god, I guess certain like the ways in which things are supposed to be in terms of like standards, like things that look professional. I don't know, or like there's certain levels, and I guess to get to the level that's kind of like this is like sellable, like gallery worth artwork. I think I don't know, again, the root of like the organisation who kind of created these values and where they came from. I think as soon as you kind of come to grips with that, oh god, I don't know, it's so mind blowing for me, and I can't come to terms with like how because everything's so complicated. You can't just be like, this is what we do to change to change the system, and of course everything's just so complicated. I think
I feel sometimes you have to play them at their own game.
I feel that too.
And just force yourself into
the
spaces, because your work needs to be heard, but then I think you also need to be looking after yourself, because
and also there's, especially I think now, we're at a perfect time to be creating our own spaces, and like for sure white institutions have made themselves the mainstream, and they've made themselves seem as though they're the most legitimate and credible and therefore reputable institutions to be involved with. But actually what we're also seeing now with Black women especially is a push towards creating their own content and creating their own conglomerates so that they can showcase the work that they're interested in. So I mean, like an obvious example is Shonda Land, but you've also got Lena Waithe with her directing, with stuff she writes, and Marsai Martin, who's like 14 years old.
Yes. I'm so excited for the upcoming movie with Issa Rae.
Right? It's going to be amazing. And
I'm really excited.
Like, she's got her own company.
She's 14.
This 14-year-old in Hollywood, in white Hollywood. So
she's just owning it.
For sure, I think there's a lot of pressure to conform and assimilate into white institutions. And I'm studying law at the moment, and law is so white. The way that you have to comport yourself and speak and dress, it's all very, very, it's very whitewashed and very middle class, and that it's hard to be yourself unless yourself is like a white middle class man who can talk like this and you know, isn't that what they say? sorry. But I think a thing that I found at being in Bristol is that actually we can, especially in creative spaces, we can create our own things. So we have Bristol's New Black, which showcases black art. Casual plug, you know. And Stacey, you're doing incredible things. I'm Melvin. That's how we met you. Like 2 years ago.
2 years ago. People still talk about that photo shoot.
Wow.
I still look at those photos.
I still repost those photos.
Wow.
Yeah, it was big.
That's you articulating your experience as a black woman and giving other black women of all shades of all shades the opportunity to also tell their stories. So, yeah, assimilation sometimes might feel necessary, but I think we're also at a time when we can take charge of our narratives and push forward the stories that we want to tell.
Just going off what you said in terms of navigating the art world. Okay, so I'm not an art student. I study politics with international relations, and I often find myself in spaces where, you know, I am the only black person in the room, or one of very, very few. Very, very few. And this year, well, no, for the past 4 years on my educational journey, we've been looking at the curriculum and seeing, okay, so whose version of knowledge are we privileging? Whose version of knowledge do we deem as legitimate? Do we deem as worthy of teaching students as the universal? Oftentimes, these versions of knowledge come from white privileged men. Most of them are dead, and their biases are also taught as universal. So how do we not necessarily combat that, but how do we broaden our understanding of what counts as worthy of teaching to different students? So I've been working with some of the coordinators of the curriculum at my university and trying to get more women on the list, trying to get more black people on the list as well. And this year, they have completely revamped the political theory course. And instead of just teaching, like, let's say, Rousseau, they've taught, like, Rousseau in conjunction with the Haitian, what do you call it, Haitian Revolution? Yeah, with Toussaint Louverture. So for those of you who don't know, like, at the time when the French Revolution was going on, it was for equality and fraternity and liberty, and like equality of men. But how can you have equality of men when there's a literal slave trade going on in a colony owned by France? You know, like that kind of contradicts itself, right? But we don't learn about that. So that's one of the things that's being taught now in political theory, and it's just so nice to know that people are expanding the very narrow, white-dominated, male-dominated canon to more. And also on your point about whitewashing your projects and stuff, I definitely, I share in your frustration. I see it time and time again where black women have their ideas, have their passion, they have the skill set to make it come to pass, and then there are these sort of gatekeepers who not stand in the way, but you have to kind of pass through them to make sure that your project can launch, or to make sure that it'll hit the right audiences, or to make sure that it gets resources and funding. But then in order to appease these gatekeepers, you have to almost shrink yourself in terms of what you want to do, or the way you want to express yourself. Because if you express yourself fully as you, then it's like, oh, you know, it's not quite art, or like, oh, it's not quite professional, or, you know, it's not up to our academic standard. But who makes those standards? And why are those norms so entrenched? So yeah, I feel for you.
I think I'm gonna reply. I actually have no idea, because I was thinking, I was like, do I just accept it?
Can you send it to me?
Yeah.
Can you send me what you sent and what they wanted you to do?
Yeah. And then I was like, Stacey and Soso are curating an exhibition that explores representation, institutional racism, and something else. Because the whole topic was, the exhibition is about it's called Why Are We Not Here? So why is there a lack of black representation in white art institutions? So they asked myself and another girl to curate this exhibition, which is that's cool. That's an amazing opportunity. But and they want people to come. They want people to attend. But it's like, there was a specific paragraph I sent you, and I guess because maybe they feel like it's almost like an attack, because she said something like, oh, with the institution that we're in, we have to make sure that the language that we use is whatever. And then she's like, oh, but you can use this language in a different brochure, but that brochure is like, it's very small scale and hardly, no one's really going to see it.
Mm-hmm. That's the point.
So, exactly, so I read it and I was like, I don't have the time for this. I just put it down and made my way here, because I was like, yeah, so even now I don't know. But I think what's important as well, I mean, sometimes you have allies.
Yeah.
So, you're white allies. Yeah. So, the woman who like helped me get this sent me a message and was like, Stacey, I just saw the email. What do you want me to say? And I was like, okay. Like I read it before, like I read it like probably like half an hour ago, and I was like, okay, like now this is useful. So I think sometimes like when you find the right ally, you can be really happy.
Yeah,
whether it's one or two.
That's true.
How do you see the future? How will we develop in an utopian idea?
One thing that I think will push us forward is being able to help people coming after us and lending a hand. So like, as you said, being an ally, we as Black women have the opportunity to actually reach out to younger Black women and Black girls. And I mean, we're not that far ahead, you know, like there are older Black women who are also helping us along. And I think forming a community and being very vocal about supporting other Black women and Black girls on the come up and Black non-binary people is a huge part of what will take us forward. Like, for instance, in the law school, I have one Black lecturer. Her name is Faluke Adebisi.
I follow her on Facebook.
She's incredible. Yeah, her blog, amazing. And she has this saying, which is, I'm probably going to misquote it slightly, but it's basically that the word impossible is used to describe a problem that no one has found a solution to yet. And one of the big problems that she has helped find a solution to in the law school, because there's a lot of racism at the University of Bristol, as many people know, is that we didn't have a law and race course until this year. And Faluke and another lecturer called Yvette, as well as some students, including myself, helped to kind of bring that forward and help it grow and become an actual course at the uni. And that seemed totally impossible when I first joined law school. The idea that we'd have something talking about the way that race interacts with law, because so much of what we've been taught had been very whitewashed and very, it had assumed certain things about people interacting with the law that just weren't true. And I think one thing that we can sometimes get stuck in is when we're trying to find solutions to problems around representation and problems around the extent to which we're allowed to express ourselves, is that we think that our solutions have to be within the realm of possibility and totally doable, totally achievable in certain frames, and that's the only way we can change things. But actually, and this is another thing I learned from Faluke, perhaps if we aim for something that seems really wildly impossible, even if we don't quite reach that goal, we will have pushed further than if we just say, okay, this is possible in this little tiny box. And so with the diversity and inclusion thing, that they're trying to push you into this tiny box and say, okay, this is palatable to white people, and I think it's a good step forward, isn't it? Yeah. You know, we talk about the Blacks, but only in the way that white people feel comfortable. But actually,
#Green Book.
Oh my God. We are.
Just had to throw that out there.
But Ursula, how could you do this? But you know, you're trying to push beyond that. You're trying to say, no, it isn't just diversity and inclusion. This is institutional racism. This is about how Black voices need to be centered, not just included. And I think when we allow ourselves to imagine beyond just what people tell us is possible, then we can really push forward and create incredible things.
Let's just drop it in.
So good.
Oh yeah.
Ooh.
Damn.
I don't really have anything new to add. I guess just drawing upon what both of you guys said. This morning I was speaking to my mother and I was just talking to her about how frustrated I was with my university. So in the entire Paulus department last year of the graduating class, we had 4 courses, and out of those 4 courses there was only 1 Black student. 4 degrees, 1 black student, right? And I was shocked, but at the same time I wasn't shocked. But I just thought, like, how entrenched is it at this university that we talk about ethnic minority groups as if we are dissertation topics or case studies, or our experiences are just these marginalized things that we should look under a stethoscope and talk about it, like about them, but without them. And I just thought, like, how many times do I have to be saying the same things? How many times do my peers have to be advising members of staff who say they're concerned but don't want to back it up with action? And like, there's so much literature out there, and they keep on asking us to tell them more, but they don't want to consult the literature. But anyway, so she was telling me that the changes that the Race Equality Network at my university have made this year, so getting Afro-Caribbean hair products into the Fresh store, which took 4 years, by the way.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and getting like Afro-Caribbean food products, like plantain chips, for example, into the Fresh store. It took 4 years, and the people who started working on those projects don't even get to see the benefit, but it happened.
Mm-hmm.
So she was telling me that, yes, I may be frustrated, but I shouldn't give up, because the efforts that I'm putting in now might lay the groundwork or a foundation for change that is to come after me. And just because it comes after me doesn't make it any less valid. Just because I don't see the immediate changes right now doesn't mean that, like, the work doesn't count for anything. And I think that as Black women and non-binary people who are pushing for change, that we have to keep that in mind, that yes, okay, we're doing the work now. We might not necessarily see all the changes that we want to see, but a lot of the time, change takes time. And a lot of the time, which is what people don't really like to talk about, before change happens, or maybe after the changes happen, there's a backlash. Yeah. And it feels as if you've gone 1 step forward, but then like 5 steps back. So just being aware of that, and like you said before, taking care of yourself, and that putting yourself first, like taking care of your health, because it can be really demotivating. It can be, like I said, like just frustrating. And yeah, definitely encouraging the generation that's coming after us, making sure that representation is a priority. One of the things I do with my cousins, the oldest one is 8, the youngest one is 1, is that I buy them books with Black females just doing amazing things, just so that they know that they're capable of doing it. One time it came to my attention that one of my cousins, she was 4, and she told me that she couldn't do something because she was a girl. And I was like, this child is 4 years old. 4 years old!
And that's already set in her mind.
And how is this message, where did she get this message from?
Psychologically, from the age of 4, you know what's good and bad.
Good and bad, yeah.
You know that being white is better than being Black as a kid already from 4 years old.
It's crazy.
Like, that's why we have to be so, as you are saying, so aware of how we also talk to our siblings and all of our,
Yeah, I completely agree. I think there was this experiment done in the United States where they had a black doll and then a white doll.
Oh, yeah.
And then they did this with Black children, where they choose which one is the good doll, which one is the bad doll. And the Black children pointed to the black doll as the bad doll, even though they themselves were Black. So yeah, internalized racism starts early. So yeah, when I realized this in my 4-year-old cousin, I was like, okay, this is clearly not okay. I need to do something, and I need to do it urgently. I bought her books for her siblings as well. And I bought myself the books as well, so that when I wasn't there, we could read it together over Skype or over FaceTime. And now some of the books that I bought her. So now some of the books I bought her, like Little Leaders, Bold Women in Black History, I think. The Little Leaders book, and Young, Gifted, and Black, just for her to know that, you know, anybody can do absolutely anything, and just because you're a girl doesn't mean that you can't be a pilot, or you can't be a writer or a scientist or somebody who is really into like a male-dominated sport. I mean, that's just ridiculous. But yeah, I was horrified when I realized that it happens that young. And not to say that people don't change over time, they definitely can. But I think as a child, there are certain messages that you internalize, and it's very difficult to change the root of that idea as you grow older.
I feel like you saying that just made me think about what you said. Is like you almost believe that you're white. And I think even then living in Switzerland, the reason I never even thought about my black identity is because I almost thought I was white. Like I was speaking like French and German, like what I guess you wouldn't consider like a black family speaking. And yeah, like you just give me, I've just had like a revelation in my head. But it's like I don't think I thought of myself. I never thought about my identity as a black female, because I think I fitted in so, like I guess so well with white people in Switzerland. I didn't even think otherwise. And then I came to this country and I was like, oh my goodness, I'm a black woman. And I was like, well, but why am I getting all this? Why do I want to have, I say have blonde hair, but I'm just saying, like, I desperately wanted to, I just hated natural. I was like, I never had my hair out. That's a joke, not happening. Why can't I look like this? Why can't I have blue eyes, etc. But it's weird because I lived in Switzerland from when I was born until I was 9 years old. So that's young. That's young for you to think, that, yeah, I'm white. That's it. And internally.
But I guess it also makes sense if every time you turn on the TV and you look at children's shows and you only see white kids, and they're the ones that are having fun, they're the ones that are doing the amazing things, they're the ones that are doing the good things, you associate yourself as a good person, then you start to associate whiteness with good, and you want to be good, therefore you have to be white in order to be good. Going off of your experience, my experience growing up in the Netherlands, in my head, I felt like I was just like anybody else. But I guess from the external validation and lack of validation that I would receive, I knew that I was slightly different. And it wasn't until I got older that I started seeing my blackness as something really significant. Like it started taking on a more specific meaning. So when I was a child, for example, I spoke Dutch and I spoke English fluently. And Dutch people would always say like, oh my God, wow, you can speak Dutch, wow. As if it was something incredible or really noteworthy. And I just thought, oh, they just think I speak well. But really it was this surprise that a young black child could acquire the level to speak Dutch the way we do. And I constantly face that at school, like, oh wow, Kelly, you speak such good English, but it's my mother tongue, right? Or stuff like, oh wow, you're really, really smart. And I'm like, I'm just as smart as anybody else in the room. Why is it that my intelligence is seen as significant or othered? And at first, really, when you're a kid, I'll speak for myself. When I was a kid, I just initially saw it as compliments, but there were these backhanded compliments underlined by this assumption that like black people can be smart, but not too smart. Black people can be literate or eloquent, but not more eloquent than us, because that wouldn't affirm the notion that they are somehow inferior. And yeah, as I got older, I just started to realize there is this otherness that people don't want to talk about, but they would backhandedly address. And I guess with just, going through puberty and whatnot, and you just realize, okay, my body is a bit different from the other girls. I'm not a Maria Sharapova, I'm more of a Serena Williams.
I mean, hello, who was the champion here?
And just being like, just knowing that, that is okay. It definitely did form my identity. Then coming to the UK, where, at my university, my goodness, we barely have black people. Especially in my department.
Girl, then you see, I'm just saying.
Especially in my department, and you feel the isolation. And not just black students feeling isolated. I know international students who didn't grow up in the UK, they feel isolation, but it almost, at times it did feel multiplied. Like I didn't feel like I belonged, and then I couldn't get my hair done in the city. Like I'd have to leave the city just to get my hair done. Stuff like that.
How do you see other black women in your everyday life?
I just want to start. Every time I see a black woman on the street rocking her natural hair, a part of me just rejoices. I just want to clap for her. I just want to give her a high five, but that would be weird because we're strangers. But yeah, I love it. I love seeing black women rock their natural beauty with pride and like just feel comfortable in their own skin. Because I remember like when I went natural, oh my gosh, there were times where I was just like, oh, how do I tame this thing on my head? Like, just growing into your own beauty and self-acceptance and stuff. So every time I see a black woman with natural hair, I just feel so happy. So happy.
I feel like I smile at every black woman.
Yeah,
literally.
you're that
girl. I'm like, I don't even know you actually can't be that person. But I was like, like this lady was getting off the bus and I looked at her and she, like, obviously like if I knew I would refer to her as auntie, and I looked at her and I was like, she didn't even look at me. I was like, what are you doing? Like, what are you actually doing? It's like, there's just this thing like, and even when I'm on the bus or if I see a black woman, black man, and I just look at him like, I've got you, like, I've got you. And I don't know, I'm thinking, oh, maybe if I'm walking down the street, someone's looking at me and thinking that, but I just think, I don't know what it is within me that makes me want to do that. I think it's just understanding, I guess, the different everyday struggles, the microaggression that you face, and then you're just trying to get through a day. And I especially feel it for like our older, like our parents' generation, in terms of like a lot of us. Well, I'm first generation, so it's like my mum and dad have strong Nigerian accents. They go into work, and I know there are people that do not treat them well because of that. And so when I see somebody that is along the same like age as them, like, or going somewhere, I'm just looking at them. I'm like, just keep providing for your family. Just do what you can do. Like, do not listen to anybody else. Like, you got this, and I see you. Thank you. Like I think that's where that all stems from.
Yeah. Seeing people.
Yeah.
A while back I went to this talk, and it was I think she's called Dawn Esteban, and she's like a therapist, like a holistic therapist, and she was talking about how when babies are growing up, a really important part of their identity formation is mothers looking into their eyes and seeing them. It's called the mother eye. And she made the analogy that black people in the West don't have that mother eye. Like, when they're seen by the West, it's with a really unfamiliar gaze, if they're looked at all. And so, like, the idea of looking at black people on the street and giving them the nod or smiling at them or just acknowledging their existence is like our way perhaps of giving each other that mother eye that we lack from the country as a whole and from our societies. And so, like,
it's deep.
This is deep. No, that literally,
like, you know what I mean? Like, I could be having the worst day, and if an auntie walks past me and smiles at me, my day is sorted, everything is good, my feelings are okay, like,
it really hits you differently.
It hits you different.
It does.
In the chest. And I don't know, like, I don't personally believe that our end goal should be representation on TV and like in the media. Like that's a good step forward. But Black liberation is way more than just us being on HBO and Channel 4 and whatever. I think like us owning our own media and us being able to control our own narratives is much bigger than that. But I think just having those moments of being seen and seeing each other is like, those moments are so special and so important. And I hope that like for younger people, it won't be quite as scarce, and it won't be quite as sparse, and these moments won't be as few and far between, because we'll get used to seeing each other, and then we'll be able to express that more fully and more wholly to each other, and like to show each other the love and the community that we may not have necessarily experienced growing up, and the older generation also may not have experienced. I think we're like, again, at a really good stage where we understand self-care, we understand community care, and we're having conversations about what that could look like and how we could nurture each other in a society and within systems that don't want to nurture us. And I think like we'll see each other and we'll help each other by being able to form those communities and really try to pull each other along, pull each other forward.
Very good. So good.
Dropping gems, dropping bombs. Oh my gosh.
Does anybody want to add something to it?
I think growing up, because I saw my parents do it so often, it was just an unwritten rule that I applied in my life as well. And I did it especially when I was in the Netherlands. So you see another black person passing by, and even though I was a minority and I was aware that, okay, there are not a lot of black people where I am growing up, I was always comfortable to like smile at people.
Mm-hmm.
When I came to Bath, because I felt like an other and a bit of an outsider, I didn't know if I could just look at people and smile at them. And the culture was just so different in the sense that you literally brush somebody's shoulder and they start apologizing to you profusely. So, sorry. I was like, people over here, they apologize for everything, but colonialism, I don't understand.
Wow. I love how you just threw that.
I don't understand.
You gotta tell them.
I really don't understand. But yeah, so like when I was in the UK, I didn't really know, was it culturally acceptable to just like look at strangers and smile at them or acknowledge them. But then when I lived in Belgium, it was completely different. When I lived in Belgium, like I felt completely comfortable. Well, no, not with us. Some men were a bit creepy. But aside from those creepy men, I felt really comfortable with just acknowledging people when I was down the street. And it's really about, seeing people, letting them know that they're seen and that their existence is valid.
Mm-hmm. And then my dad created this thing called the Swiss African Forum, where it was like Swiss Africans coming together as a collective, making changes in Switzerland for black people.
So
and
cool.
I didn't realize, like, they created magazines and everything, like events. When we went to Switzerland like a couple of years back, like they had this massive event in the summer. We all went to it, and then my dad was showing me something like a couple of months back, like something he wrote, like that was like the opening statement to one of their first events. And I was looking at it and I was like, Dad, everything I do now I think I got from you. Like just in terms of how my dad has, I don't know, I think, because sometimes I'm like, I've talked to people and they're like, you're putting so much effort in, and it's like, and sometimes I'm stressed, sometimes I'll break down and I'll cry, and I'm like, but I know the capability that I have, and I know the different things I can do within this space. And I think because seeing my dad always do things like that and always put himself out there, always talking to different people, creating his own spaces, like I've sort of taken that on board, like internally, and then projected that out within Bristol. So I just thought that was quite interesting.
You're gonna make me cry.
That's
amazing. It was like a sudden revelation, because I was like, yesterday I had a breakdown, because I was like, this is too stressful. I'm working 3 jobs plus doing freelance. Like, money is okay, but I was like, is this worth it? Like, why can't I just, I thought to myself, why can't I just be a black person and just chill, like, just chill, like, why do I have to be conscious of all this stuff? Why? And I'm like, but then I was like, no, like, everything you've accomplished in the last 2 years, God knows you didn't even think about it. So that's why I'm just like, I know I can do it. I know I have the capability to make a difference, and it's like, and it just takes time, and you just see it.
We believe it.
Thanks, B.
I have so much faith in you.
I think not as a child, it's weird. Like when I was quite young, I'm gonna say sometime between like 8 and 11 years old. Like, before then, I was always looking for like somebody that I just wanted to know what I'd look like when I was older. Like I wanted to know what I'd look like as a woman, and I was always looking for some like I my mum didn't kind of like, she had black friends, but like I don't know, like of course I'm not educated to the extent as to know why I weren't associated. Well, of course to a certain extent, but like psychologically there's a lot more there. Why I didn't see them and be like, that's what I'm going to be as a woman. And I was always looking for like these light-skinned women, and like I'd never see them. I remember like walking, there was like 2 memories that I have of me. There was one when I was in a pub with my mum, and it was between the age of 8 and 11 from what I can remember. I don't know, it's weird, because like memories, the way memories resonate, it's weird. And I came to the realisation, I saw this woman and she was light skinned and she had curly hair and she was wearing heels and she was quite tall, and I was like, it was when I saw her and she had all these things that I thought that I was, and then I realised that like actually I'm going to look like me when I'm older. It was weird. I don't know. It was really strange. It was a strange like realisation for me. But in terms of like the way that I saw black women when I was young, it was disgusting. I think that again, it's that the environment that I was in through my upbringing, and then of course like coming into higher education, I've had to consciously unpick these narratives in my head and the way that I see the world and the way I see people. And I just didn't love myself. I hate, like, I don't know, it was just, and like, I just really wish I documented my thoughts then, and then I'd be able to speak on them well, but I know that they weren't pleasant thoughts.
I asked those questions to really listen again, to get inspired myself and maybe help other people who feel talked to by this to feel inspired as well. I hope you enjoyed the video and the listening as much as I did. Thank you.
My name's Courtney Welcome. I'm an artist. I don't actually know who I am. Like, I have no idea. I don't know.
I'm gonna do a read. Okay. Hey, I'm Sheila. I'm a final year law student and the co-director of Russell is New Black. Yeah, it's lit. Cut that out. We'll just.
It's lit. You done. Okay.
So I'm Stacey. I'm a creative director and graphic designer.
Hi, I'm Kelly. I'm here today with the Black Female Gaze Project, and I'm really excited to be a part of it. I am a politics and international relations student. In my free time, I like to dance, I like to play volleyball, run, do excessive amounts of things at the same time, and one day you will see me at the United Nations.
Woo!